What's going on? I'm going to be doing a DS game test for the RG351M. I'm going to be doing a comparison with the Retroid Pocket 2. I'm still working on a full review for the RG351M, so stick around for that. But for now, let's get into the test. First off, this test is done using ArcOS with the included Drastic emulator. With the default software, the Drastic emulator only sort of works. The menu doesn't work correctly, so it's difficult to change any settings or save game states. With ArcOS, the menus at least work, but it still is tiny, so everything's very difficult to read. With the Android Drastic app on the Retroid Pocket 2, none of this is a problem, and it has many more features, such as moving the screens however you want them to be. So already the Retroid Pocket 2 has a bit of a lead on DS emulation. The first game is Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass, with a patch to be able to use the D-pad and face buttons to control the game. If you want to see how to do this, I'll have my video on it as an annotation and I'll have it linked in the description. But for the game itself, from what I've played so far, it runs just fine. It seems to have about the same performance as the Retroid Pocket 2, but with an occasional frame drop. So just a tiny bit worse than the Retroid Pocket 2, but still totally playable. This is Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, and it ran fine at default settings. I didn't notice any frame drops or lag while playing it, and it seems like it's at full speed, but there isn't a frame counter in the RG351 version of Drastic, so I'm not totally positive, but it felt about the same as playing it on the Retroid Pocket 2. And the bottom screen is really only used for the menu, so this one's just as enjoyable. Next is Pokemon Soul Silver, and it ran fine. It did seem like there was a bit more slowdown than when I played it on the Retroid Pocket 2, but I think that was just because you have to swap the screens to see the attacks, and for some reason swapping the screens causes the game to slow down for a second or two. Besides for that, this one was totally playable, and it is just a turn-based RPG, so a couple frame drops here and there aren't the end of the world. This is Megaman ZX Advent, and it ran perfect from what I could tell. I have it compared to Megaman ZX on the Retroid Pocket 2 because I must have selected the wrong game when I was recording and didn't take the time to correct it, but they are very similar on the hardware, so I don't see them running any differently from each other. Here is Mario Kart DS, and it runs great on the RG351M. I didn't feel any slowdown while playing and couldn't hear any in the music either. I actually think this one ran a little better than it did on the Retroid Pocket 2, because on the Pocket 2 it had a little slowdown when the race was starting on the countdown, but after that it was fine, so they both ran about the same, just maybe a little improvement. It just sucks that you don't have easier access to the map on the touchscreen for the RG351M. Last up is Super Mario 64 DS. This one surprised me the most, as it ran just a bit better than the Retroid Pocket 2. They both ran the gameplay about the same, but the menus on the Retroid Pocket 2 had kind of a lot of slowdown for some reason. But that didn't happen for me on the RG351M, so it was just a little bit better of an experience. So as you can see, DS emulation works fine for most games, as long as you update the operating system to one where the menu works correctly. The performance overall seems to be about the same as the Retroid Pocket 2 with a few exceptions. As for the pros for the RG351, choosing a game from the menu is a lot easier. All of the buttons are pre-mapped in a good configuration, and the right stick acts as the stylus with R3 acting as the touch input. For the cons, the screen configuration can't be adjusted. The emulator menu is tiny, so it makes it a little hard to select the options. The screen ratio makes the game even smaller than it is on the Retroid Pocket 2. The Retroid Pocket 2 and the RG351 both do DS emulation fairly well, but if I had to choose the best experience, I would have to go with the Retroid Pocket 2. Because you are able to see both screens at the same time and move them to however you want, it just wins out. That was my test of the DS emulation on the RG351M. Let me know if you want to see anything else tested. I'll probably be doing PSP next, and I should have my full review on the RG351M out next week. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more tech and gaming content. Thanks for watching. Oh my god, I suck. Oh. Alright, there we go. Now we hitting shots, baby.